I know you care about good government, and I'll tell you, we need more Kentuckians that care about good government and get involved in these elections. You know, this Tuesday will mark 58 weeks on the trail, 6 days a week, going county to county to county to county, typically about 4 counties a day, talking about where Kentucky is today and what's possible in the future. And if anyone here is thinking about running for office, whether it's local office or running statewide, I'm here to encourage you to do it. And like I know many here, most here, have been involved in public service. You know that when you give of yourself to others, more ends up coming back to you. And it doesn't seem like it should work that way, but it does. So mine is an unlikely candidacy for governor. If you I have many friends here, we've known each other for a long period of time, and if you had asked me 2 years ago, Hal, do you see yourself running for governor? I would have to tell you honestly, it just wasn't on my radar screen. But you know, there are twists and turns in life when you feel like you just can't stay on the sidelines anymore. I, like many of you, when you see something that can be better than it is, I've never been able to say, somebody else will take care of that. So an unlikely candidate for governor. I have not served in Frankfort. I did serve here locally on the city council, but I haven't served in Frankfort. Last served here on city council was 5 years ago. Sheila and I, my wife Sheila's here, standing over here in the wall with the pinkish, purplish sweater on. We've raised our 4 children on a corn and soybean farm here in Jefferson County. My life, I was the oldest of 6 children, and my dad was a Marine and an engineer, taught us the value of hard work, and and those of you in large families, you know, you have the privilege of helping pay for your own education. So while I was going to high school here, I was working 4.5 hours a night as a janitor at a nearby office building, cleaning there on Saturdays, working in industrial plants, cleaning there, working in laundries, all through college, busboy, washing dishes, wherever I could get a job. One of those jobs was on a survey crew. And on Saturdays, the guy, if you know, one guy's by the instrument and the other one's way down the road holding the level rod or a stake or something, well, that person way down the road was me. And at 19 years old, I decided that someday I hope to live on a farm, and also, because of the construction staking we were doing, wanted to be an engineer. Became an engineer, and worked in a dozen years in engineering on roads and bridges and water and sewer, and had the opportunity to do that all across Kentucky. Even had an apartment in Letcher County in eastern Kentucky for a while. Sheila and I raised our 4 children here in Louisville, as I was talking about earlier. And we decided to become a missional family, to be involved in areas outside our own life. So Sheila was involved we lived near the maximum security women's prison in Shelby County. Sheila taught Bible study there, was involved teaching Celebrate Recovery, and from time to time, as women would have a child there at Pee Wee Valley, that child would come and live with us. And then Sheila would go back over 4 or 5 days a week for 2-hour bonding visits, and then would work with that mom through a halfway house process, and then back into the economy. And we understand that vulture called addiction, how it lands on your shoulder and digs its claws in, and how hard it is to get it off, and how much it wants to land back on your shoulder when economic stress comes about later on. Sheila currently serves in Shelby County on a crisis pregnancy center board, a pro-life organization, just got their first ultrasound machine. And not only just involved in crisis pregnancies, but also involved with moms, helping them understand how to build a life, balance a checkbook, what good nutrition is. The last 20 plus years of my life, I've been involved in education. That's been my civic passion. Had the opportunity to serve on Christian Academy's board when it had about 700 students in a barracks type, actually it was a World War II barracks environment. And I had the privilege of serving on that board part of the time as a chair, and built 3 other campuses. Now over 3,000 students today are both getting a great education and learning about Jesus 5 days a week. Had the opportunity to serve at a school for kids with learning differences, and saw how with specialized education, children can use their God-given abilities to the maximum and be able to go back into mainline education once they learn how to compensate for those differences. Today I serve on a board of a school, a great school. Some of you may know it. It's in Wilmore, Kentucky. It's called Asbury University. It's a great school, blends a love for God with academic excellence, a really good school. But 4 years ago, after coming out of the mayor's race here in Louisville, when I came face to face with high schools that had a higher dropout rate than a graduation rate, I knew we needed a different form of education in Kentucky, a specialized form. Started traveling around the country, formed a group called Kentuckians Advocating for Reform in Education to help the kids that have the biggest gaps in life, that don't have the benefit that I suspect all of us had. A parent that says, your homework finished? To study for that test? Medical clinic availability? And what they're doing in 43 other states right now with parental choice, whether it's vouchers, public charter schools, specialized education to meet each child where they are. That's prohibited in Kentucky. We're one of 7 states, and I've been fighting for the last 5 years, beating my head against that brick wall in Frankfurt, that status quo, that establishment that tells parents, no, we're going to decide. We're going to decide for your children. And we know how specialized education, the difference it makes. I've seen it. I've seen it in the heart of Indianapolis. I've seen it in Nashville. I've seen it in Harlem. I've seen it across the country. Sheila and I homeschooled, or Sheila did mainly. I did part of it, but about 3 or 4 years for each one of our children. Specialized education works. In my business career, worked as an engineer, then started building business parks for a very large company that worked in multiple states, and got to see how states were either welcoming of investment and jobs or kind of take a ticket, take a seat. But nearly 20 years ago, when we still had 4 children at home on the farm, we started a business building business parks. So for the past 25 years of my life, I have worked with businesses as they decide, businesses from around the world and around the U.S., as they decide where to put their jobs. And I'll net all of those 25 years out for you. When they scorecard Kentucky, they love Kentucky. They love our low-cost power thanks to coal. They love our central location, perfectly located in the center of the country. Reason UPS is here, it's the lowest cost place to ship and receive goods. They love our work ethic, 8 hours of work for 8 hours of pay. They love our low-cost housing. Who we are, where we are, what we are, they love. We get A+. We make it to the Final Four. But the reason we're having trouble getting selected, the reason our economy is growing at less than the rate of inflation, is they can't stand Frankfurt. We sit here at 46th in the country in overall tax burden. In Kentucky, we tax everything. Whether it stands still or moves, we tax it. And it's a burden on families, and we have to bring taxes down in Kentucky. On regulatory environment, we need items. We have to have right to work. 25 states have it now. We have a slow permitting process in Kentucky. It's hard to start a business in Kentucky because we're so slow. It's so bureaucratic. Other states have built a partnership approach. We want to help your business get going. We're going to line up the agencies, and we're going to reduce the number of agencies in order to get going. And financially in Kentucky, we're battling it out with Illinois right now for 49th and 50th place in the country because of our unfunded pension liability. It's fiscal mismanagement, and last year we were named one of the 5 worst run states in the country. That's not the Kentucky I see. That's not the Kentucky we can be. It's not the Kentucky we need to be. That's why I'm running for governor. This election comes down to who can best take on Jack Conway in the fall. And I'll tell you, the contrast couldn't be clearer. Jack's for Obama's program, and I'm opposed to just every program. I know we're out of time here, but I'd ask you, join me in this effort. We need the citizens of Kentucky to be involved, not just make what happens happen in Frankfurt, but for the citizens to be involved, calling their representatives and senators, and we'll bring about big, long-lasting change, grow jobs in the state, complete culture change in education, and bring about the Kentucky we know is possible. So thank you so much for inviting me here today. It's great to be here with you.
We have a few, just maybe about 2 or 3 minutes.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
You mentioned right to work.
Yes, sir.
I've always been opposed to right to work. Ronald Reagan started all this with the union busting. And what I think the Republican Party, what people are forgetting and not recognizing, that because of the unions is the reason why all of us are making money the way we are right now. But you do away with all the unions, it goes back decades to where the lower wages right now, companies are hiring, giving people an early out and hiring new people, but hiring them in at a less wage than what the older workers were making. And as far as the pension program, these people have worked all their life and invested into these companies to have a pension. They should be able to have their pensions depending on what their companies say and what the government, dictates behind it.
Yeah.
And I think it's wrong to bust the unions and completely without out the unions for one reason. When you get rid of the union, you make way for every Tom, Dick, and Harry that wants a job to come in, which is good in one respect, but they're not qualified most of the time. And it's shoddy workmanship. They cut corners, use cheaper materials, cheap labor, and it goes on down the line.
Yep.
I want to ask you about
Okay. Well, thank you. There's two questions there. One was on pensions and right to work in general. First, I was talking about pensions for people that have been employed by the state. We have to honor all of our past commitments. It is going to take a different form going forward. We're today in the top 5 states in the country for early retirement benefits and the bottom 5 states in the country for employee contribution. It just won't work. We're incurring liabilities today that we can't pay for. We need a 30-year plan to solve that problem. Other states have solved it. We need to solve it. It's very unstable right now, and I'm committed to honor all of those past commitments. On right to work, that's an issue that now 25 states are right to work. And what's happening is it's becoming a screen-out tool for companies to decide where to locate. So this year, just two companies I know alone have opened in other states with 600 manufacturing jobs that didn't come to Kentucky. And what's happening, it's happening so fast right now, especially now that Michigan's gone right to work and Wisconsin and the entire southern U.S., is that a lot of companies won't even consider a state that's not right to work. And when you look at the statistics, the growth of unions is strongest in right to work states. Now that doesn't seem possible, but it actually is. Their growth is strongest in right to work states because that's where the jobs are going. And what we're faced with here in Kentucky is we are short 100,000 good jobs for families to be secure. That's, any of you know that Paul Coombs from, our economist at University of Louisville. We're short 100,000 good jobs. And what's happening is we're getting screened out by companies that won't even consider coming here because of that issue now that half the states in the U.S. have right to work. And I understand the points that you're making, but ultimately we need good jobs in Kentucky and we can't compete for them today. And what's happening, let me just say one more thing, because Sheila and I have felt this. What's happening is it's splitting up families in Kentucky. One of our great heritage points in Kentucky is that we have deep-rooted, multi-generational families. We're interconnected. It's a great part of our state. But what's happening is I've traveled these 58 weeks. I'm hearing, I can't find a job. My spouse is having to travel now in two cases, 90 miles to find a job in order to support us. I am really worried that when my children finish their education, not only will they not be able to find a job in our county or our region, maybe not Kentucky. And I will tell you, Sheila and I felt that. When our oldest daughter finished her education, we said, honey, find a great job, one that you can use your God-given abilities to the maximum, something you like to do, and she did. But it was in Texas. And then you know how that story goes. She marries a Texan, and then over Easter weekend, we visited our 4 grandchildren that are being held hostage there. It's not right. There ought to be a law against it. But the fact is, we can't compete today without that. Now, there's a whole host, there's 20 other reasons we're having trouble competing. That's one of them. But anyway.
Well, there's 2 other issues here, and I don't want to get into a debate with you.
Well, here, I'll give you my business card, too, so we can correspond.
First of all, it's the Democratic side of this minimum wage that's outrageous, giving top pay to part-time work, which is introductory work, supposedly be a learning experience for these young people, and now they're making full-time jobs out of it. Plus, with the non-union, with the right to work, you may be attracting more industry, more work, but paying less wages.
Yeah.
Where a man and a family, instead of having to stay at home, either a mother or dad, they're both having to work to make up what's due because of the lower wages.
Yep.
So you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Well, you know, when I was in college, they had a minimum wage and a sub-minimum wage for certain industries. And the sub-minimum wage was $1.30 an hour. So when I mentioned those jobs I had earlier, dishwasher and janitor and all that, I was making $1.30 an hour. And I have to tell you, at the time, I was thankful for the job. I was very good at finding those sub-minimum wage jobs. You know, I was like, yeah, really. But the focus, what we need in Kentucky is we need good jobs, and we need the education system that matches up with that. So here, we don't have enough focus on industrial certifications. Let me tell you. Yeah. Well, we have a shortage in Kentucky right now of welders. Industry can't find enough welders. They can't find enough people in tool and die. They can't find enough people in advanced manufacturing technology. These are Kentucky companies. They can't find enough people in medical technology. They can't find enough EMTs and paramedics to staff our ambulances. So we have to rethink. I mean, Georgia's done this. They've gone from a K-12 education system. They think of theirs as K-14, that in order to get a job, to be able to support yourself and hopefully a family, it's going to take either industrial certification or college courses, because the jobs today are more technical than they were before. And because technology, quite frankly, is ruthlessly eliminating the low-skilled jobs. And that's what we need to do. One state actually says you have to have the first level industrial certification or some college credit before you can graduate. So kids are on their way to supporting themselves, not for minimum wage jobs, but jobs that can support themselves. And that's the kind of thinking. We're just stuck. We're just stuck here in Kentucky. And with an education establishment that's not allowing us to move. We're not falling off a cliff, but we're not improving.
Those low-income families and those people that are on welfare, how are we going to get them off of welfare? Because we can't pay them forever in taxes. They only need the government for so long. Mm-hmm. What is your proposal on that?
Yeah. We have a complete retraining education platform to get people trained for the jobs that we have. You know, Amazon last year hired 10,000 robots in their warehouses. You know why they did that? To eliminate 60% of the labor cost. And that's what's happening with jobs that don't require new training. We've got employers in Kentucky today that are looking for trained individuals. So we need a different approach on our workforce investment boards, and then we need a different approach in our schools, because that's a big part of economic development as well, that we've got a workforce ready for the jobs, not minimum wage jobs, good jobs. So that's what my focus is. Okay, all right, Dr. Simon. Okay, thank you so much. Really hoping to have your support. Tell your friends, if you would. It's the most powerful part of campaigning in Kentucky. Share with them. Thank you so much.